We have got to figure out some way to help our farmers with labor. And with us, of course, we're talking about a seasonal labor force that comes in and leaves and does a fantastic job to help our farmers. And so it's just priority one for our organization. Now that's a federal issue, right? We've got immigration issues and all that stuff. And so what we're trying to figure out is what can we do on a state level? And so we've kicked around maybe some ideas about, so we have to house these migrant workers, and our farmers have to pay for that. And so maybe there's some ways that we can get some help from the General Assembly to expand and just maintain some of that housing to just help our farmers, because wage rate went up again a couple weeks ago, 90 cents an hour, and so it continues to go up, and I won't get into all the details of that, but that's we got to do something about this labor situation.
Sean, we're looking at those same counties for healthcare recruitment, because realizing for you to have a strong ag industry, you've got to have healthcare there to support them.
Yeah.
So we're looking at how do we intentionally recruit our loan repayment program folks to go to that area, right? Because our loan repayment, unlike the federal or the state, is a 5-year program. Still pays $100,000 in loan repayment, but at 5 years, most of those physicians and PAs and nurse practitioners and they'll stay, right? At 3 years, they do their time, they move. At 5 years, they're a part of the community, right? Just like the farmers. And figuring out how to create those bonds early so that those doctors and those farmers are working closely together, or the manufacturers, ag manufacturers.
It's dangerous. And it's not just dangerous where you think, like prisons.
Right.
That's everybody thinks about that. It's dangerous in that newborns aren't being tested promptly. That would, and I've had nurses tell me, I had no idea why that was. I just knew there was this big holdup, and it is very dangerous. And they'll talk to me, and they're really upset about it. It's things like, at Carowinds when the roller coaster incident happened. Now, Department of Labor, that wasn't because people hadn't been out there.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing, it shows you just how dangerous things that are every day for some of these agencies and the work they do, if it's not done, if it's not kept up with. And all of our agency heads have been very clear, there's not any possibility of them keeping up with things like that. But then there's the other side, which affects all businesses. And I've heard from a lot of business leaders as well who are saying, we support you in trying to get these vacancies filled, because it's slowing our processes down, whether it's with Department of Insurance, Secretary of State's office, any of the things business relies on.
What I was going to say too, I hear people talk about our companies all the time and why do they have self-checkout and that sort of thing, and partially because of a labor shortage. And we go back and I look at it sort of in a sports analogy of when you have a kid that comes in as a freshman, regardless of the transfer portal, you're hoping to get them to be a senior. And what we saw, one of the things that happened after COVID was we lost a whole class of kids and employees. Most kids, their first job is bagging groceries or working as a hostess or working at the boutique counter. And those kids didn't go to work because their parents were scared, they were trying to stay safe. And so we lost that whole class of kids that would have matriculated through and would eventually become store managers or maybe going into the corporate world with some of our headquarters companies. But we lost that group of kids, and that workforce development of how do we find those kids who also are doing gig economy. They may be driving for an Uber or a DoorDash or something instead of working traditional jobs that young folks used to work at, which makes it more difficult to find those quality employees and grow them.
I can say, from the C-suite perspective, workforce development is what keeps these guys up at night. I was talking to a CEO of a major construction company here in North Carolina, and he was telling me that's one of his biggest concerns. And he was talking about the lack of a skilled workforce, and specifically lack of electricians. He said with all the projects they've got going on across the state, they just can't find enough electricians to do the work. He was telling me about 10 years ago, on a typical job site, you'd have about 20 electricians and maybe 30, 40 helpers with those electricians. He said now you're lucky to get 3 electricians, then you have about 30 helpers. And he said that's just slowing things down. And we've got to look towards an answer. I mean, I think one of the best secret weapons North Carolina has, I don't know if it's secret anymore, but in our community college system, and just leveraging that across the state to build that skilled workforce.
I would say we're fortunate in the tech arena where that is happening. I get asked a lot, how are we going to meet the demand? Apple makes their announcement and Google makes their announcement. Where are you going to find all these people? And I always say we have sort of a triple set of advantages. We do produce a lot of great institutions, the community colleges, private colleges, the public system, and we have a really good existing workforce that can be upskilled and trained, also often by those same partner institutions. We are a real source of in-migration for higher skilled talent. I get calls every day from people who said, I've never been to North Carolina, and my family's researched it, we want to move there. And I've had people move here without a job.
Right.
They know they can get one. And so we're fortunate in that particular sector, there's a lot of in-migration.